There was no warning. One moment, the broadcast across all Empire systems was the usual endless loop of stern protocol briefings and glorious military propaganda. The next, the screen flickered like a dying star, colors bleeding like they hadn't been calibrated since the Paleolithic era, and a grainy figure emerged, cloaked, hunched, riding what appeared to be a large mortar. At first, Sub-Admiral Krelax assumed it was a malfunction, a glitch, probably another rogue solar flare disrupting the mainframe. But when a figure began to cackle, long wheezing, and somehow still menacing despite the low resolution, he leaned forward in his command chair and narrowed all three of his eyes. "What in the 9 clusters is that?" he muttered, brushing the slick of his tunic free of imaginary lint. Across from him, the Empire's chief analyst Coholdo adjusted the thick lenses of his ocular enhancers, squinting at the screen like it might explain itself if he stared hard enough. His skin, the hue of wilted spinach, paled another few shades. "That looks like a human myth." "A what?" Krelax barked. "A human," Coholdo said slowly, "folk figure. Very old. She's known as Baba Yaga." The name was barely spoken before the broadcast glitched again, this time into static. But not before a final image burned itself into the minds of everyone watching. A crooked wooden house balanced on 2 enormous, chicken-like legs, lurching through a pine forest drenched in blood-red twilight. Sub-Admiral Krelax's mandibles twitched. "This is a classified military channel. How did what did you say, this Baba Yaga get access?" "Yaga. Baba Yaga," Coholdo corrected, still dazed. "And I have absolutely no idea." Krelax stood sharply, his ceremonial epaulets flaring with indignant pride. "We are the Galactic Empire. Our networks are sealed tighter than a black hole containment vault. This is sabotage." "No," came a new voice, dry and amused, from the rear of the command bridge. "This is Earth." The speaker was Ambassador Reyna Beck, the Empire's reluctant human liaison. She stepped forward from the shadows, cradling her ever-present cup of what she insisted was coffee, though no analyst had successfully classified it as consumable. Krelax turned on her with the force of a small supernova. "Explain this intrusion." Reyna blew across her cup and shrugged. "Honestly, no clue. But I can tell you this. If she's showing up on your screens uninvited, you're already in trouble. She is a fictional construct." Krelax snapped. "A myth." "Uh-huh," Reyna said, dragging out the syllables with the same tone one might use to humor a child insisting their imaginary friend could do calculus. "Just like gravity's a suggestion and taxes are optional. She cannot possibly be real." Reyna took a long, deliberate sip. "Yeah, that's what Stalin said." Briefly. Krelax didn't know who Stalin was, and he didn't care. He turned back to the screen, where the signal had finally gone dark. "How does a myth hijack an interstellar broadcast system?" Blurk hesitated. "Perhaps it was a psychological attack? A warning, maybe. Humans are deeply encoded with folklore. It's possible someone, perhaps a rebel faction, is leveraging that knowledge to sow fear." "Then we eliminate the source," Krelax said. "Prepare a cyber sweep of all human colonies. If this Baba Yaga is a virus, we will quarantine and erase her." Reyna barked a short, incredulous laugh. "Quarantine Baba Yaga. Cute." Krelax ignored her. "Analyst, begin full threat analysis. Cross-reference all known Earth mythological figures with potential subversive patterns. Deploy scouting drones to all low-security relay stations. I want answers in one cycle." "I'll try," Coholdo muttered, still staring at the screen as if it might flare up again. "But, sir, if the old tales are accurate, this isn't something we can fight with protocol." "There are no threats beyond the Empire's reach," Krelax growled. "Especially not from a cackling fossil in a flying bucket." Reyna sat on the edge of the command table, letting her boots tap lightly against the metal. "You know she doesn't just kill, right? That's too easy for her. She tests. She judges. And then she adjusts you. Permanently." Krelax turned to her. "You speak of this legend as though she were real." Reyna smiled. "I grew up hearing bedtime stories about her. You know, the kind that aren't meant to help you sleep. My grandmother swore she saw the hut once, dancing on legs like it was doing a Slavic jig. A Slavic jig? Reyna grinned wider. You wouldn't get it. An alert chimed from Coholdo's station. His eyes dilated, and his voice trembled. Sir, we have a secondary signal. Not a transmission, an alert beacon. From Outpost Theta 43. That station is in the uninhabited zones, Krelax frowned. Nothing is there but surveillance and scrap. Not anymore. He tapped a control. The screen crackled. A blurred image emerged, shaking, chaotic, with audio feed dominated by screams and what sounded eerily like the tinkling of wind chimes. Then, for a single clear second, the camera steadied, capturing a towering hut striding across volcanic terrain, its wooden legs clawing through stone like paper. Behind it, fire bloomed in grotesque shapes. Figures, imperial soldiers, floated upside down, suspended in midair like marionettes. Then the feed went dead. No one spoke. Krelax's three eyes focused tightly. Send a fleet. I want that moon leveled. Destroy the anomaly. Reyna stood. Bad idea. Krelax rounded on her. You're Earthborn. Surely you want your species protected. Oh, I do, she said. That's why I'm telling you. Shooting at her is like poking a bear that moonlights as an eldritch deity. Your metaphors are inefficient. They're the only kind that make sense for her. Another alert pinged. This time, it was from internal systems. Coholdo's skin flushed purple. Sir, the primary AI matrix has just reclassified Baba Yaga's threat level. To what? Level Omega. Reyna almost dropped her mug. That's new. Krelax looked between them, his exoskeletal fingers curling into fists. I don't recognize that classification. Blurk turned, his voice very quiet. Because it's never been used. It means reality distortion threat, capable of rewriting causality. Reyna blinked. You guys actually have that category? It was theoretical, Coholdo replied. Until now. Krelax paced. We do not surrender to myths. If this Baba Yaga is real, we will neutralize her. Find her origin, her purpose. Everyone has a weakness. Blurk hesitated. In the stories, her weakness is morality, ambiguity. If you're clever or worthy, she might let you go, or give you something. But if you're corrupt, Reyna finished for him. She eats you. Literally? Krelax asked. Reyna shrugged. Sometimes metaphorically, sometimes with actual teeth. Depends on the day. The bridge lights dimmed, unprompted. All systems flickered for a moment, and the overhead speakers gave a long, low creak, as if something enormous shifted just above the hull. Then silence. Krelax stared upward. Was that structural? No, Coholdo whispered. That was sound, but not from outside. From inside the broadcast matrix. She's here. Reyna stepped back. Not physically. Yet. Krelax stood unmoved. This is psychological warfare. We remain logical, calm, strategic. The command table buzzed once. A fresh transmission appeared on the main screen. No signal header. No encryption. Just an image. A close-up of two ancient hands knitting a scarf. The yarn shifted colors with every stitch, blood red, then forest green, then deepest void black. A voice hummed in the background. Not words. Just melody. Old. Eastern European. Almost motherly. Then, softly, spoken in a rasp that sounded like moss growing over a grave. Knock knock, little empires. The screen went black again. Krelax straightened, his voice ironclad. Scramble long-range sensors. I want eyes on every frequency. Triple firewall our systems. Prepare for counterinsurgency. No more games. Reyna, holding her mug like it was a lifeline, said, You really don't get it. You're not being invaded. You're being evaluated. Krelax turned sharply. Evaluated by a witch? Reyna met his gaze. By a force older than your empire. Older than most stars. She doesn't need planets. She has stories. Blurk added softly. And stories are the only things that survive extinction. Another silence fell. Then, in a distant storage corridor far below the bridge, something heavy walked. Just once. A step. Slow. And hollow. Like wood. Krelax clenched his jaw. Let's find out what she wants, before she knocks again. Above them, unnoticed, a cluster of decorative data lanterns began to sway, synchronized rhythmically, like they were hanging from something breathing. The Empire had mocked the idea of ghosts. They were about to learn some legends don't need belief to be real. They only need an invitation. The mission began with confidence and ended with someone screaming it's pecking the ship just before the feed went dead. Outpost Theta 43 had gone silent. The walking house, if it could even be called that, was last seen trampling a reinforced defense dome into splinters. Now a full Imperial Tactical Recon Division was inbound, bristling with every weapon short of star dissolution bombs. They called themselves the Iron Talon, a name earned through planetary subjugations, 10-layer kill count medals, and something called Operation Meltstorm, which was still classified. They'd never lost a mission. Then again, they'd never fought a Hutt. Command Shuttle Valkos led the armada, descending through Theta 43's hazy atmosphere. On board, Commander Zell drummed his armored fingers across a glowing tactical map, eyes scanning for movement, anomalies, anything resembling a logical threat. Instead, he got Rick Daniels. "Yo," Rick said, striding into the command chamber wearing a leather jacket over his Empire-issue jumpsuit and a t-shirt that read Run DMC. "You must be Commander No Nonsense." Zell stared at him. "Who authorized your presence?" "Ambassador Beck. Said you needed a human specialist on local legends. She gave me full clearance. Also a fanny pack, but I left that in storage." "You are unqualified, unvetted, and extremely flammable," Zell growled. "You are not joining this op." Rick grinned, chewing gum like it was a negotiation tactic. "Tell that to the last outpost. Or what's left of it. Besides, I know the lore. You shoot Baba Yaga, she laughs. You bribe her with the wrong thing, she laughs. You ask her for something politely, and maybe, just maybe, she turns you into a pine cone instead of puddle. You're saying our target cannot be killed? I'm saying she doesn't play by your rules." Commander Zell turned back to his officers. "Deploy skimmer units Alpha through Gamma. Secure a perimeter. Engage if hostile." "Hey," Rick interjected. "Engaging is exactly how you lose a spleen. Or a soul. Not sure which. Maybe both." Zell pointed a gauntlet finger. "Stay on the ship." Rick gave him a mock salute. "Yes, sir, Commander Fun Vacuum." The recon units deployed swiftly. Skimmers skimmed across the volcanic ash plains, black armor glinting in Theta 43's twin suns. They moved in formation, plasma lances armed, drones fanning out ahead. Audio feeds buzzed with static, then a sharp whistle. Just wind, maybe. Or breath. Unit Alpha crested a ridge. What they saw made them stop cold. The hut stood atop a jagged hill, silhouetted against a boiling sky. Its legs, gnarled and feathered, flexed like a predatory bird's. Smoke curled from its chimney. The front door opened slowly with a creak that felt intentional. Inside was darkness. Not shadow. Darkness. An absence so pure it made the recon lead's visor flicker warnings he'd never seen before. Error. Light reflection below minimum detectable range. Alpha lead reported in. "We have visual. The structure appears. Wait, it's..." The hut moved. It turned, fast as thought, and charged. Legs pumping like pistons. One soldier screamed as he was plucked off the ground and hurled into a boulder. Plasma fire danced across the hut surface, but found no purchase. The wood did not burn. The legs did not falter. "Retreat," barked Alpha Lead. "Regroup at fallback point." Static. From the Valkos, Commander Zell watched 4 red indicators blink out. He ground his teeth. "This is not a fairy tale. That is an enemy combatant. Bring in the Shriekbots." The Shriekbots, modeled after prehistoric predators, were Empire's psychological warfare units. Their approach was designed to induce panic through sound, a layered symphony of baby cries, glass shattering, and distorted shrieks, all broadcast at infrasonic levels. They flew in low. The hut stopped. Then it laughed. A soundless vibration rippled through the landscape. Shriekbot 1 spasmed midair and crashed. Shriekbot 2 froze in place, then exploded, not in fire, but in a shower of petals. Roses. Black ones. On board the Valkos, systems flickered. "Sir," the comms officer said, voice shaking. "Something is overriding our signal matrix." A new feed opened on their central screen. It was Rick Daniels, from the planet's surface, holding what looked like a broom. I said, "Stay on the ship." Zell shouted. Rick winked. "I brought her a gift." The screen widened. Behind him, the hut loomed. Its door stood open. Light, warm, golden, hearth-like, poured from within. "She let me in," Rick said. Zell blinked. "What?" "She made me tea," Rick continued. "Chamomile." And a hard stare. Then she asked if I was useful or edible. I said I was good with 80s trivia and knew how to install a stereo. She laughed. "I think that saved me." "You entered enemy territory without backup." "Yeah," Rick said. "But she gave me something." He held up a small object. It looked like a wooden doll, carved with intricate patterns. She called it a token. Said I'd earned a favor. But only one. The feed cut out. Commander Zell slammed a fist against the console. "Recall him. Detain him. And prepare orbital bombardment. If diplomacy fails, we exterminate." Raina Beck's voice chimed in through the auxiliary feed. "Zell, don't. This is an unauthorized override." "You kill her now," Raina said, "and you doom every ship in this quadrant. Possibly your entire family line." "I do not believe in curses." "You don't have to," she replied. "She does." Back on the surface, Rick emerged from the hut's warmth carrying the token and a very large soup ladle for some reason. The ground was quiet. The hut, as if satisfied, turned. Its legs creaked, bent, and it began to walk away toward the horizon. Rick looked up. The sky above the ridge shimmered. Then a transport exploded. No weapon was fired. No beam, no missile, no warning. It simply crumpled inward, folding like paper. The debris vanished into a single floating candle flame. Then that, too, was gone. Rick's comm crackled. "Rick, what happened?" He took a breath. That was a warning shot. Up above, the Valkos quivered under sudden gravitational tremors. Internal gravity shifted briefly, causing crew members to stumble. The lights dimmed. A low voice whispered from every speaker. "Greed. Pride. Fire." Commander Zell turned pale. "She's in the systems." "She's in your story now," Raina corrected. "And she's rewriting it." Zell stormed toward the bridge core. "We end this. Full purge protocol. Launch everything." But the launch systems were locked. Every weapon channel blinked red. Access denied. Access denied. Then the navigation systems blinked once, and the ship rotated 180 degrees. Toward the sun, Blurk, watching from the Capitol, called in over emergency subspace. "Abort. Abort. We're reading a full systems override. She's turned your ship into a sacrifice." In the chaos, only Rick's voice remained calm. "Give her something," he said. "Offer a story. An honest one." "You're insane," Zell shouted. "We are soldiers of the Empire." Rick sighed. "Then you're exactly what she's hungry for." The hut reappeared on every view screen. It walked slowly now, each step punctuating a rhythm. The crew could feel it in their bones. Some wept. Others sang lullabies without knowing why. A few muttered childhood prayers from languages long extinct. The hut stopped. Its door opened. From inside, shadows spilled, then resolved into memories. Zell's memories. His mother. His first act of betrayal. The prison colony he buried with orbital fire. All of it, replayed like an ancient VHS tape, grainy and raw. He dropped to his knees. "I did what I was ordered," he whispered. The shadows paused, then impossibly nodded. The hut turned and left. The Valkos systems rebooted. Engines stabilized. Weapons came back online, locked and unused. Rick appeared on the bridge 10 minutes later, covered in soot and holding a lunchbox shaped like a chicken. "Do I get hazard pay?" Commander Zell stared at him, hollow-eyed. "What did you tell her?" "The truth." Zell swallowed. "She showed me my sins." Rick nodded. She tends to do that. You believe she's a god? Rick thought about it. Nah. She's just old. Powerful. A cosmic mom with judgment issues and a serious thing for architecture. The commander turned to Reyna's feed. Why would Earth create such a creature? Reyna smiled faintly. We didn't create her. We just remembered her long enough for her to matter again. And now she walks among us. She walks where stories go. Rick set the chicken lunchbox down. And stories, Commander? They travel fast. Back in orbit, every Imperial sensor tracked the hut's slow departure. No engines. No propulsion. Just legs. It vanished behind a cliff. And for a moment, everything was still. Then came a final transmission. No image. Just sound. A child's voice. Knock, knock. Then silence. On every ship, in every system across the quadrant, the lights dimmed, just briefly. And everyone, without knowing why, checked under their beds. The Empire had met something it could not catalog. And it had let them live. For now. A galactic empire is not supposed to flinch. Its foundations, after all, are built on control, millennia of order, countless systems of compliance, and a collective understanding that nothing unknown remains unknown for long. Yet now, in the quiet war rooms and signal bunkers across the stars, one word traveled faster than light and with far more fear. Yaga. The panic wasn't official. Nothing in the bureaucracy permitted it. But the data logs didn't lie. 9 minor governors missing. For planetary AI cores reduced to ashes. Entire outposts rearranged into spirals of soot and feathers. One high admiral woke up suspended in a tree miles above sea level, unable to speak except in riddles about soup and forgiveness. A silent meeting convened aboard the Empire's strategic stronghold, Pinnacle Station, orbiting the dead world Zhao. 10 of the highest-ranking figures in the Imperial security hierarchy attended, all cloaked in shadow, names stripped for secrecy. But at the end of the table, the light wasn't dim. It was doused in full neon and the smell of coffee. Ambassador Reyna Beck sat with her boots on the table and a cup in hand, the mug chipped and bearing the fading image of a cartoon duck holding a chainsaw. "This is a joke to you," one of the shadows hissed. Reyna sipped her drink. "No. This is breakfast." "You're the human liaison," said another voice, slower and deeper. "You were supposed to contain your planet's myths." Reyna raised a brow. "I was told to broker peace, file forms, and smile at 8-eyed bureaucrats who think sarcasm is a disease. I was not told to contain a millennia-old supernatural entity with a fondness for architecture and vengeance. The consequences of your failure are astronomical." Reyna leaned forward. She was locked in story. That was her cage. But someone let her out. Not me. Not Earth. Someone from here. The table quieted. Several cloaked figures exchanged worried glances. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said, setting down the mug, "you awakened her. Or provoked her. Something brought her attention past the edge of the map." Another voice, raspier, spoke up. "A few centuries ago, we investigated Earth's anomalous cultural power. Myths that resisted deletion. Stories that survived extinction-level events. We considered them harmless until now." Reyna didn't blink. "You poked the bear." "She was a threat," said the rasp. "We tried to isolate her frequency, box her into a digital simulation, and analyze her nature." "You tried to digitize a folktale. That's like trying to turn a hurricane into a paperweight." "We were thorough," said another voice. "But she escaped." Reyna stood. That wasn't escape. That was permission. She only acts when invited. Someone broke the mirror. They all fell into silence again, until a small screen embedded in the table buzzed. A signal. Emergency grade, highest priority, marked with a crimson stamp no one had seen in centuries. Level Omega X, status, systemic compromise. "Where is this from?" someone asked. Reyna leaned over. "It's from within the core worlds." That was when the lights failed. Every bulb, every hologram, every system, cut to black in unison. Then, slowly, one by one, tea candles flickered into life on the table, arranged in a perfect circle. No wind. No source. Just fire. Then, a kettle began to whistle. Everyone turned toward the end of the room. Blurk stood there, trembling, holding a teacup and saucer, his other hand clutching a datapad full of unreadable symbols. I didn't know where else to go, he whispered. She spoke to me. The officers all rose at once. Who allowed this creature in? Blurk fell to his knees. She said she's not here to destroy everything. Reyna approached him slowly. Then what does she want? She wants them to remember. The ones who started this. The old council. She said they promised something centuries ago, and then buried it. Promised what? Reyna asked. Blurk's voice cracked. To leave Earth alone. The shadows stilled. Somewhere above, the faint creak of a rafter echoed. There were no rafters in Pinnacle Station. Reyna took a slow breath. What did you bring? Blurk handed her the datapad. It's not tech. Not really. The files don't exist until you read them. And then they vanish. Reyna looked at the screen. Symbols danced like frost patterns. She didn't understand them, not entirely, but she felt them. They hummed. She encoded memories, Reyna murmured. Not data. Memories of what they did. Blurk nodded. The first probe missions. The sealed vaults. The children taken to study Earth's psychic archetypes. They tried to extract mythos. Bottled them like perfumes. One of the officers growled. We had no record. No, Reyna interrupted. You had a cover-up. And she remembers. She is a construct of fear, another voice said firmly. Fear is irrational. We must strike. Now. With what? Reyna asked. Plasma? Fear doesn't bleed. It teaches. She doesn't kill for fun. She tests. She finds the rot and rips it out. She destroyed a battalion. She rewrote their guilt into action, Reyna snapped. Rick told me. The ones who survived are feeding entire refugee sectors now. They don't know why. They just woke up changed. What is your plan, Ambassador? A voice demanded. Reyna stood fully. We bring her tea. The silence cracked like glass. Explain. Reyna walked slowly, calmly, to the head of the table. Not literal tea, but the offer of story, of honesty. We dig up the truth. We admit what happened. We invite her in, and let her judge. That is treason. That, Reyna said, is survival. Alarms blared. The display lit up. Core system echelon. 7 had gone completely dark. No war. No invasion. Just lights out. A final message blinked in from a last station. She is walking. Everyone turned to Reyna. She drained her cup. Get me Rick Daniels. Rick Daniels, meanwhile, was halfway through a grilled cheese sandwich in the wreck wing of a forgotten cargo hauler. He was trying to explain cassette tapes to a Zarjan engineer who thought sound should only come from bone conduction when Reyna's face appeared on the comm panel. We're screwed, aren't we? He said, mouthful. Only if you don't finish that sandwich and meet me at Station Delta, 5 within the hour. Rick raised a brow. Is this about the time the Empire tried to digitize folklore and accidentally woke up Baba Yaga? Yes. Cool. Be there in 10. When he arrived, Delta 5 was already a ghost. The Empire had evacuated. Candles lined the halls. Chalk markings covered the floor, some of them old Slavic protection sigils. At the center, a small table was set with 2 chairs, a samovar, and a plate of gingerbread cookies shaped like frightened senators. Reyna greeted him with a nod. Rick Saturday, so final interview before the hut crushes the station? Reyna smiled faintly. It's not final yet. A breeze passed. From nowhere. Then the hut arrived. Not through the walls or airlock. It simply was there, standing in a bay, legs bent to fit the ceiling, smoke curling gently from the chimney. The door creaked open. A woman stepped out. Or a shadow. Or something that wore the shape of a woman, like a coat. She walked to the table. Rick stood and offered the chair. Baba Yaga sat. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then she looked to Reyna. Your blood remembers. Reyna bowed slightly. We failed to protect the promises of our ancestors. Baba Yaga turned to Rick. And you? He blinked. I brought cookies. She smiled. Acceptable. They drank tea, not because it was custom, because it was old, and old things respect each other. When the cup was empty, Baba Yaga set it down and whispered a word that cracked the air. Truth. The table dissolved. The walls faded. The candles flared and vanished. They stood inside memory. Rick gasped. They watched as ancient alien dignitaries stepped onto Earth's soil, cloaked in human skin and curiosity. They watched them harvest story, bottle fear, dissect myth like it was chemistry. They saw a girl, barefoot, shivering, dragged into a chamber and told she was going to help fix the universe. They saw Baba Yaga, just a whisper back then, coil in rage. The vision faded. The table returned. The hut's shadow loomed long. Raina breathed. How do we repair this? Baba Yaga looked at them both. You already began, she said. A second cup appeared. Empty. Raina understood. They had to fill it with stories, with memory, with truth. The hut creaked. The door opened. The Empire's command staff filed in, one by one, masks gone, eyes wide. They sat. They spoke. They remembered. Across the galaxy, systems stabilized. The blackout stopped. The wind stilled. One by one, planets began to change, not destroyed. Rewritten. Greed stripped away. Orders restructured. Those who lied found their tongues heavy. Those who harmed without cause found their hands could no longer lift weapons. It was not violence. It was judgment. Baba Yaga stood. She nodded once. Then she left. The hut turned and walked. Out the door. Through the void. Into story again. Rick leaned back. So, that went well. Raina laughed. For now. They both looked at the second cup. Still empty. Waiting. Because story never ends. It waits for the next chapter. The final vote came down in silence. 10 shadowed figures stood in the war chamber, beneath the shattered dome of Imperial High Command. No one raised a voice. No one dared. The screens that once displayed galaxy-spanning surveillance maps now glitched with flickering candlelight, and the air carried the faint scent of pine smoke and old parchment. At the center of the room, Admiral Krelax stood straighter than he had in decades. His uniform was pressed, his posture rigid, but there was something hollow behind his 3 eyes, a silence where certainty used to be. He had seen too much, and yet he still did not believe. This, which, he said, is a story, an echo. We cannot let our empire fall to shadows and sentiment. She is a reckoning, replied Raina Beck, her voice calm but electric. And you're still pretending your hands are clean. Krelax's mandibles twitched. My hands have built stability. Rick Daniels leaned on the edge of the conference table, arms folded, boots dusty from another visit to the outer moons. Nah, your hands signed off on a lot of ugly things, Admiral. You just gave them neat names, like economic deterrence or cultural containment. We maintained peace. You buried truth. And yet, Krelax snapped, you still stand here. You, the smirking relic of a primitive species, clinging to outdated legends and illogical threats. You think your fairy tale will rule us. I think it already has, Rick said. Across the table, Coholdo nodded solemnly. He no longer wore his analyst badge. His datapad, once a symbol of relentless data parsing, now served only one purpose: transcription. Of memory, of story, of myth turned real. We've received reports, Coholdo said, voice quiet. Dozens of systems. Spontaneous truth outbreaks. Governors confessing to crimes without explanation. Officials caught in lies simply disappear. Not in violence. They vanish like their falsehood was never part of the story. It's reform, Raina said. Not conquest. It's control, Krelax spat. It's reflection, she corrected. The Empire's rut is surfacing, not by war or threat, but by the weight of its own lies. That's what she is. A mirror. And you hate what you see. A deep rumble echoed through the station. No one moved. They all felt it, not an explosion, not damage, but presence. The kind of gravity that bends more than just space. It bent belief. It bent legacy. She is here, Coholdo whispered. The great doors at the end of the chamber creaked open. Not with force, with patience, with inevitability. And there she was. Baba Yaga did not walk like a conqueror. She shuffled, cloaked in shadow, her frame bent, a scarf tied around her head. Her eyes glowed not with fire, but with memory, long winding, relentless. The Imperial Guards did not move. Their weapons flickered, then powered down. Krelax reached instinctively for the command switch built into his armrest. It fizzled, sparked, then turned to a cup of warm tea. She approached the table. Reyna and Rick stood, not out of fear, out of respect. "You called," the crone rasped, voice dry and amused. Krelax rose slowly. "You have no authority here." "I need none," she said, "in a house built on broken oaths." He clenched a fist. "You are not real." She turned to him, unblinking. "I am as real as the pain you buried, as the children stolen, as the promises broken when your empire carved itself across the stars and forgot the cost of forgetting. There is order to maintain. There is consequence to collect." He took the step forward. "You do not belong here." She tilted her head. "I go where I am remembered. You remembered me in your fear. You summoned me in your denial. I demand your withdrawal." "You have no words left," she said. "You built a tower of silence and called it safety. But silence is not shelter. It is a door, and now it opens." The chamber lights pulsed once. A hum began to rise, but it wasn't sound. It was memory crawling up the walls, flickering in the air like stories coming to life. The table shook. Each of the shadows, those ancient architects of empire, began to change. Their outlines flickered, faces blurred. One by one, their images crumbled into ink and scattered into the windless air. Only Krelax remained. He staggered back. "What is this?" "Judgment," Baba Yaga said softly, "but not by force. By story." She turned her gaze to Reyna. "You carry Earth's memory." Reyna nodded. "Speak it." Reyna stepped forward, her voice low, steady. "You once told our ancestors that stories were seeds, that they must be planted with care, that if watered with cruelty, they grow into monsters, and if buried too deep, they return as ghosts." Rick spoke next. "You warned us. That truth doesn't disappear when hidden. It waits. It festers. Then it walks." Baba Yaga smiled. "You remember well." She turned back to Krelax. "You built an empire, but you forgot your debts. A debt of truth. A debt of memory. It must be paid." He stepped forward, defiant. "You cannot destroy the empire." She looked amused. "I have no need. You already did." And then the screens blinked alive again. Not with chaos. With confessions. Across every sector, broadcasts lit up. Imperial officials reading statements they had never written, but somehow needed to say. Soldiers laying down arms without knowing why. A scientist in the biotech sector paused in her lab, then turned herself in, whispering, "I altered the birth records." A governor threw open his own palace gates, screaming, "I can't lie anymore. She's in the walls." It wasn't a purge. It was a purge of secrets, of rot, of empire. The walls of the high command began to shift, not crumble, rebuild. Stone became wood. Steel turned to carved runes. A window opened. Impossible. There had never been a window in this sealed room, and through it they saw the hut, waiting, watching, its legs folded gently beneath it. It had made a nest. Rick looked at Reyna. "So what now?" She took a breath. "Now we don't rule. We remember." "And her?" "She moves on," Baba Yaga said. Rick raised an eyebrow. "Just like that. Legends are not meant to linger, only to remind." She walked toward the window, and the room shifted with her. Krelax fell to his knees, the last of the old guard. His voice shook. "What happens to me?" She looked over her shoulder. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you meant it," she said. "Any of it." And she stepped through. The hut's door closed behind her. Its legs rose, and it walked off the ledge into open sky, and disappeared into fog that wasn't fog, but the breath of old gods and broken promises, curling through the stars like incense and sorrow. The chamber was still. Lights returned. Systems buzzed. Reyna looked at the command panel. All units reporting no hostilities. Entire sectors are quiet. Rick sighed. Like after a storm. No, she said. Like after a story. Krelax remained kneeling, trembling. Reyna approached, but didn't gloat. She gave you a chance. I don't know what to do. Then start with the truth, she said, offering him a hand. He hesitated, then took it. The Empire didn't collapse. It changed. Its borders shrank. Its weapons rusted. Its leaders resigned, confessed, disappeared. But no one invaded. There were no conquerors. Only an old hut in the woods of space, walking. Sometimes it was spotted. On moons, in dreams, inside static. Sometimes people knocked. Sometimes it knocked back. But the Empire remembered. And Earth? Earth lit candles on winter nights. Told stories to children. And never, ever forgot her name. Because legends never die. But sometimes they come home.